Hey, what's up, Spirit Souls? I hope you're having a fantastic day and welcome to the 108 Days of Chanting podcast. I'm your host, Chaitanya Das, and this is the podcast where we aim to understand who we really are so we can more effectively move towards what we want. My guest today, let me bring him up here. Keep going on and off. And it's on my end, AV. Everything is good on your end. Here we go. You're back. My guest today is AV, Ananta Vrndavan, a good friend of mine. AV, we know each other for how long now, AV? Since I came to the community here in Florida. It's been what? 2005?
So, yeah, that was '05, yeah?
Right, yeah.
Definitely '05. So, wow, 16 years, Baba.
Yeah. AV, by the way, is my first guest. First episode of, of the 108 Days of Chanting podcast. AV is well known within our little community here, actually around the world, right? He has a beautiful voice singing his kirtans. Now he's in California. And I chose to have a conversation with AV again because, I like I always enjoyed talking to you, the way you look at things, always looking for personal growth and things like that. So I appreciate you joining me in this new venture, AV.
Hey, the pleasure is mine. I appreciate being asked, and I'm honored.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. So again, the theme here is it's not gonna change, right? We always have deep philosophical conversations when we talk about things, when we talk about life. I decided to start a podcast to really ask the question, how can I, as I said in the beginning, the introduction, how can I more effectively move towards the things I want, right? And I heard someone saying something I thought was super interesting, which was, we all do something. Whatever we do it for one reason and one reason only. We think we will be happier, we will be better, we'll feel better in the having of it, in the experiencing of it, right? And that makes me think because we have regardless of the conditions, we have the ability to find happiness, to find happy feelings wherever we are, wherever we stand. And that's an interesting conversation to me because I think a lot of us, including myself, a lot of people I should say, but I'm certainly speaking from my personal experience, right? From what I lived in life. We live in the past, right? We live in we it's hard not to keep recalling the situations that have or that had a big impact, positively or negatively, in our lives, right?
Sure, yeah,
So I'm
definitely.
just with all the things that with technology today, a lot of people are talking online about personal development. We know that the industry of personal coaching, it made even into business now. It was something that Tony Robbins started back in the day, but now it's full on, right? He started the coaching kind of thing, but now it's a term that is well accepted
Right.
even within the business industry, even if with not business industry, but even within business, right? Even within business, people accept that you need a coach, you need to work on personal development, things like that. So those are things that are interested to me because I like to look at it from a physical, a physical, personal perspective, but also a spiritual perspective. That is kind
Right,
of the
right.
purpose of this channel. And as I said before, you're a very interesting guy. I always appreciate our conversations. So that's why I kind of asked you to join me in this in our first
Mm,
episode here, if I want to call it episode. Right? I'm planning to have many more. And I'm sure, hopefully, I won't run out of interesting people to have these conversations with. So, Evie, if you want to tell us a little bit, like about yourself, about a little bit about yourself, where we are. Like, I didn't really have an agenda. We're just two friends talking about kind of where we are in life and where we are, what we are aiming or where we're aiming to go.
yes. Okay. A quick summary of me.
Mm.
Um, was born in Chicago, the second of eight. eventually. So I was born there, and when I was about 4 years old, my mom received a magazine from someone on the street. She was interested in, something more behind what was going on. I guess if you say spiritually, she didn't really feel fulfilled um, by her upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
her church upbringing. And so she was searching, like many in the 60s, that people were really feeling like, is this all there is? And maybe we could do better as a society on many levels.
Mm-hmm.
The war in Vietnam was going on, search for civil rights. I mean, we were coming out of, the industrial age here, and all around the world, people were brought from poverty. This was part of what was good about the industrial age in a lot of ways, but people had more, I guess, ability and time to really think about, what's up, what's going on. So a lot of people were searching. There were many different, groups. There were many different people from the East who came,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom was interested in the magazine that she got, and it talked about, we are spirit souls, not these bodies, and all of that. And can you imagine the time? you
Yeah.
know, Chicago, Democratic Convention, riots, in the late 60s, all of that. So she was interested in this new, I guess, take on society and what was going on, this new philosophy, different
Mm-hmm.
from the East. And when I was about 4 years old, and then of course she decided to get more involved and more formally involved, and so I went to a succession of boarding schools
Mm-hmm.
that were based on the faith. I guess you would call it Hinduism, or a sect of Hinduism,
Mm-hmm.
is ITSCON, that she joined, International Society for Krishna Consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I went to a succession of schools, spent about almost 4 years in India, learning more formally about the philosophy, about, Sanskrit, Hindi, languages, all of this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, this shaped my life, of course, in many ways, negatively and positively.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can fast forward. I had a son when I was, what? How old was I? 22. There we go. I'm getting up there. So I have one son, and he lives here in San Diego. I am currently in San Diego. Wish I could have been doing this from the beach. That would have been nice.
That
But
would be nice.
here we are. So personally, though, the last several years, and I met you right around the beginning of this journey for me of personal growth. Now, I felt that I needed a lot more than just, I guess, the philosophy that I grew up with, or not just the philosophy. To expand it, I needed some more personal growth. I needed more personal healing, different traumatic experiences that I had, and just this
Mm.
search for who I was. A lot of it led me to getting a little bit lost, even in this philosophy or spiritual path,
Mm.
but I lost a bit of my individuality. And with that and the search for healing and personal growth, I had started on this journey. I had read my first book on this path was by Wayne Dyer,
Mm.
and it was called Your Erroneous Zones. And I read that book. It had a big impact on me, but again, real change is that continued walking of a certain path, or toward a goal that you want. So it was good, but I kind of got away from it. You know, life gets busy, life is happening.
Yeah.
Still have a lot of these unconscious things affecting my life and all of these different things. So that was the first book. And, you know, initially, you know, every few years I might, you know, remember and tap back into that desire for really just happiness overall, but desire for who I was, who I wanted. And I
Yes.
believe even sometimes in a path that you're following, you personally can get lost in that, you know. I personally was defined by the shoulds and shouldn'ts and the philosophies of what I grew up with. And you can automatically kind of operate without a bit more deeper understanding of it all.
Kind of losing your
And
own
the
identity kind of in the
understand
process.
yes, because also really it doesn't matter really what sort of philosophy path that you're on. It really can be shaped by the person who's delivering that to you. You know,
True.
what aspects are they focusing on? Because all aspects are there. You
Very
know, we're
true.
told that say the Vedas, they're full of knowledge, material, spiritual knowledge, any basic knowledge, how to operate our bodies, how to heal our bodies. Everything is there. Um, but what can get lost is the individual. And for me, I felt that was lost.
Hmm.
And sometimes because of certain agendas, that's not really pushed. That's even set aside. You know, look, you need to be following this because we need this right now, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
this was done. Like, for example, we need a teacher. There's that guy. He's not doing anything. Put him in charge of the kids, right?
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with that person as an individual. It's
Exactly.
like what this group needs right now.
As far as
So I
qualifications
felt
and
a
things like
lot
that.
of that was missing. Yeah, and not just qualifications, but your innate qualifications, right? Not just like a piece of paper or a degree. The innate person of who you are.
Yeah.
You know, are you even good with kids, for
Yes.
example? You want to do that. You have a desire for that. So there was some of that, and ultimately, I felt that I needed a little bit more internal exploration of who I was. And so these last several years have been, you know, I've done a few different things to assist that journey, and it continues. And here I am. So go ahead.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. No, I think everybody's
Mm-hmm.
is in that process of discovery, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
what you're saying is true, though,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen that a lot. As you know well, we were talking about no ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. I've been part of the community. I met members of ISKCON, the devotees, as we commonly say, right? The devotees. Back in
Yeah.
2003, I read the Bhagavad Gita, which for me was life changing in a sense of kind of having an idea of of who God is, and for me that was the most sound presentation of what the absolute truth is, right? And of course,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't stop there. Going to Srimad Bhagavatam and all the other scriptures presented by Vaishnavacharyas, but in my short experience here in the whatever 15 years that I've been around, yeah, I cannot help but identify with what you're saying based on my experience, like based on what I heard and on what I experienced as far
Mm-hmm.
as having conversations with other people that lived or know of the period that you lived through as someone that grew in the movement. So you see that is very is I mean it happened. I mean it's something that can happen enough, and it can continue to happen today. I think things naturally improve as some attention is put into it. But I think that as individuals, it's important for us to be strong individuals and be something that I do with my daughters either. Like I want to cultivate them as individuals so they can be certain about who they are. So when they come to a position to make a decision, they can be confident on their ability to make a decision. Even if they find out later that, well, it wasn't the best decision, I could have made a better decision, right? It doesn't matter. We all made mistakes, and yes, at some point we all gonna get to a position that we could have made better decisions. But whatever decision you're making, make sure that you put some thought into it and was indeed your decision, right?
Right. No, that's big, because like, for example, take the two of us. I was not exactly born, but my mom got involved in this different way of being, in this philosophy of this Eastern philosophy of Krishna consciousness, when I was 4 years old.
That's
so pretty much from the beginning, it's all like you.
Yeah, that's practically born. Like,
practically, right? Yes. Right. So, but it's going to be a very different experience next to someone who looked at it and made a conscious decision as an older person, as an adult. As a kid, you do what your parents are doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they give you what they feel is best. They guide you. How they feel is best. So we're a little different in that sense, and it's very interesting, and it actually is a big deal, because we operate differently, And so I would ask you, I know you said you read the Bhagavad Gita, it was life-changing for you. So if you could expound a little bit on what brought you, and maybe what was different, what you weren't getting before.
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I appreciate you asking that question, and I've asked that question several times. And for me, the answer, I mean, it's not as simple as what I'm going to answer right now. But if I have to give a concise, short answer, is the presentation as Krishna, the presentation of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I grew up Christian, a practicing Christian. I always, as you know, like I was born and raised in Brazil, and I think by nature, we're a little fiery, right, as South Americans. So I enjoy getting into fiery conversations. I don't mean to. I try not to have a confrontational mood, but it's easy for me to get into discussions, and I don't feel threatened by it, because I know who I am. But if we're gonna roll, we're gonna roll, no problem at all. And and I am fine with getting to the conclusion that, what, I was wrong. Thank you for sharing your perspective with me. I actually have a different point of view now due to our conversation, right? So I've always got into these discussions, even in church, about God, right? I've always considered myself a person involved and interested in spirituality. I always believed in a subtle level that I'm more than this material body, right? Experiencing death, or having experience with death, like in people dying at a young age. I saw my grandparents, and then lost my mom when I was 17 with cancer, which propelled me into a life, like an independent life. Like I was completely alone by myself at 17. Sure, I had family in the same city, but we're all living our lives, right? I was lucky enough to live in my father's house, so I had shelter, right? But I had to work. My father was a truck driver. He would be gone months out of the year. I would see him like 3-4 times out of the year, because he had to work in different states. And as you know well, Brazil is a big country. So he would go to stay. Yeah, exactly. So he would go to stay for months, whatever location he was working, because that's where the money was at that time, right? So, but I grew up in church, right? That's why I'm involved. I don't call myself a musician, but no way, shape, or form. Like people ask me like, "Oh, you play the saxophone?" It's like, "Sure, I play a little bit." Are you a saxophone player? Not even close. Like like you play the guitar? Sure, I know how to play a few chords. Are you a guitar player? Not even close. It would be an insult to guitar players to call me a guitar player. You know what I'm saying? But I grew up in church, like learning music, right? Learning music, doing the worship and praise, very involved. I always joked with my father-in-law, like
Yeah.
people go to church, like they think of church as like Sunday morning, right? Like, man, I went to church six
Yeah.
days a week, like no joke, 6 days a week. There's always an
Really
engagement, right? Was Monday rehearse, like
interesting.
Monday night rehearse. It was Tuesday, the prayer, the cult of prayer or something, and culto de oração e libertação, we say, right? Of prayer and
Hmm.
liberation, whatever you want to call it. I don't know how to translate it literally,
Hmm.
but the different activities. And then Saturday and Sunday, Saturday evening and Sunday evening and Sunday school, right? You have those
Yeah.
activities. So I was heavily involved. And
Hmm.
as you said, it became, as I was growing up, it was just something I did because what my mom, you go to school, you go to church, right? My mom was Christian. My
Yep.
dad was never really a Christian, never identified himself as a Christian, but he encouraged very much the fact that we were part of church, right? Because at least keeps you in a pious,
Mm-hmm.
it keeps the kids out of trouble, right? Let's put it like that. So he
Right.
encouraged that, but my mom was very
Yeah.
involved. My mom was very involved. She was part of the choir, the ladies' choir, things like that. So I grew up playing music, involved with the worship and praise, involved with the youth groups, right, in different
Hmm.
capacities. Um, but growing up, I always had like having these discussions, right, because about God, the personality of
Yeah.
Godhead, and I understood Jesus as God, right? You would say Jesus is God. And again, for the longest time, you
Mm.
just accept it. But as I start growing up, you start having more discussions, right? And
Right.
I didn't phrase it like that. Obviously, I certainly I can say that I didn't phrase it like that. But I did have that subconscious question of, what is the personality of God? Like I have a personality. Oh, is Jesus? Okay, I understand it. But
Mm.
he came with a mission, though. Like I can say that if I go
Mm.
to a place to do something and I focus on my mission, I will be displaying my personality, my wants and likes, my things. You won't know me for who I am in that environment. Does that make sense? And so I
Right.
asked I asked these questions uh, in conversations, and then when my mom passed away from cancer, which was something very unexpected and fast, because it's pancreatic cancer, just 6 months she was gone. I revolted.
What age were you?
I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I revolted. I
Mm.
revolted. I think that's the word. Like towards the whole thing. Like I was just done with it because if God, because they say God is all the things that I heard got all mangled up in my head. You know what I'm saying? Like the idea of someone
Yeah.
like of a devil, like of having a fight against good and evil. Like if someone like my mother, which was a good woman, and I know it's
Mm.
easy to talk great things about the dead, right? My mom used to say everybody
Yeah.
becomes an angel after they die because because every people come out of the woodworks to say great things about them, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
easy for me to mention those things, but she was indeed a great mother, right? She was known in church and our small community, someone that did a lot of service, like engaged in the church, like doing
Mm.
service, doing what we call as devotees as Hare Krishna service is something that I saw in her, right? Like doing the barbecues that they had to know
Mm.
for to generate funds for the church and things like that, singing in the choir, sewing the gowns that they were for evenings of Easter and things like that the ladies would be wearing to do a quote
Right.
unquote presentation. So all these things, and then
Mm.
to see her developing cancer and dying the way she died, and people saying that, oh, it's God's
Mm.
plan, and that messed me up because I'm like, what kind of God has a plan like this? Like I don't understand though. And then you start asking questions that don't
Right.
even make sense. They're not even reasonable, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying that I was reasonable, but you just start asking a lot of questions, and nobody could answer. Like nobody could give me reasonable answers, and that led me towards. I've always towards a lot of things. I've always been involved with partying, and when I say oh you involved with drugs, it's like yeah from that time on I went deep, but I was fortunate enough to, for whatever reason, call it my karma, the way I was brought up. I've always thought about, like, I always maintain work, school. Those things were important to me. Although I was kind of going two tracks walking in two tracks at the same time. One was a party life, doing all kinds of stupid things, and another one was showing up at 8 o'clock to work in whatever state I was showing up, but I was kind of like faking it, right? But showing up to work and going to school at night and getting a college degree and all those things. So fast forward, I know I went through work and I graduated, I went through school, graduated, and the opportunity showed up to come to the United States to learn English, because for the companies I was working for in Brazil, you had to know how to speak English. You had to be fluent in English, because that's how you would grow kind of in the company, right? And that was my whole thing, like just to grow in the corporate environment, right? To have a great job and kind of be somebody. And that is an idea that got ingrained in my head, in our heads, especially myself and my brother, from my dad, because he would say like he didn't want us to be truck drivers. It's like it's not a life that you want for yourself and your family. So I remember that clearly, him saying these things. So again, all these things kind of like led me to act in the way I act, right? To at least do the stupid things that I did, but value like work and getting an education and things like that. And I ended up coming here in April 2003 when I came to the United States. Lived in Orlando, and as you know well, I know we talked about this. Avi met Govindo Romero, a mutual friend of ours, right? We know Romero, and he was at the time dating a Brazilian, and he gave me Bhagavad Gita in Portuguese. Because I think someone it was Prema, actually Fernando Rico, Prema Nandagor. He came into the office saying like Haribo, and I was like, what is Haribo? And he, oh no, I'm a Hare Krishna. He explained all those things to me, and the natural question that I asked, we even talked about it. He's like, yeah, you asked right away. I was like, what is your Bible? What do you guys read? Right? What is your text? And he's like, oh, the Bhagavad Gita. I have one in Portuguese. And he gave me one in Portuguese, and I read. So now to answer your question directly, I know that was the long way around. And I said I was going to answer it. I said I was going to get to the point. This is me getting to the point 30 minutes later. Answering your question, what got me was seeing Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I remember reading and I think, okay, this seems to me that, if there's a case to be made here that this guy is God. And then seeing Srila Prabhupada presenting it and looking at him speaking as a devotee of, a devotee. I like that word also, to be devoted to something, to be a devotee of God. I chose it to give it a chance. And it wasn't like I was like, oh my gosh, taken aback. I was like, okay, let me give it a chance. And I kept reading and kept reading. It was more interesting. And then found out about Srimad Bhagavatam, the Krishna book, and other things. And it kind of made sense to me. And I was also living that kind of lifestyle in Orlando that wasn't in line with what I wanted, and it got to a point that was too out of hand. And I remember telling Romero, I need to go back to Brazil, man. This is not my life. Like, I'm done. Like, I came here, I think my English is good enough. I'm going to go back. I have a life down there. That's when he invited me to come to Alachua. And he said, oh, no, you like the Bhagavad Gita. We have a community there. I'm opening a business, which, AV, again, well. We had the chance to work together at Freight Exchange at that time. And he's like, come with me. So that's when I came here. And that is a whole nother story, because I went from reading the book, because again, this is 2003. It's like, I think I had a roommate, which was my first roommate in Orlando. My first and only roommate in Orlando. He had a computer. I didn't have a computer. So back in 2003, it's not something that I could go online and research what the Hare Krishnas are about. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't do that. I was just reading the book and liking and enjoying and reading it, right? And I wasn't really having discussions with Govinda Romero about it, about philosophical things, just reading. And then he invited me to come. I came, and when I came here, was kind of a shock to me, because I went straight up from reading like something and liking it, and going into, and it was around Kartik in 2005, and I straight up thought it was a cult. I'm like, oh man, this is a cult, dude. I was freaked out because I went to Raghu's house, and Raghu and everybody else singing the Darashika. With now I understand, and I know how beautiful it is, but for a newcomer, when you see it, people offering candle and humming, you're like, what is going on here,
Well, this word cult cult, it's not in a way negative or positive. It just is a word, right? And we've even heard the term used, the cult of Chaitanya, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
in a way, we are a cult. It's just that it has become this negative thing, but it actually isn't,
It
the
isn't.
real word.
It isn't.
And we're the cult of Nrsimha.
You're right. We are the
So
cult
it,
of
it
Lord
is it
Chaitanya.
is interesting. Right.
So
So
for me, but
you guys
again,
are a cult.
that came from where? That came from my Christian background. When you think, oh, they're cults and things
Yeah.
like that, that negative
Sure.
connotation to the word, right? But then I was like, okay, don't
Right.
freak out, don't freak out. It is okay. No, let's just no. I was trying to be reasonable, have an open mind, right? I always share with shared with my
Yeah.
in-laws. Like I remember going and seeing the deities, which again, as you probably know, is a known thing that Christians freak out about. Idols. They think it's idol worship. They don't understand the principle.
Idol.
Yeah, they don't understand the
Right.
principle of deity worship and what it means, right? That is not idolatria, as we say in Portuguese, and idolatry. Yeah. But when I first saw it, I remember going in front of Radha Sundar, the deities here at the new Raman Reti temple, looking at the ceiling.
Hmm.
I remember looking at the ceiling and thinking, like, my Lord, if this is something that is like, is gonna let me stray, is something that is gonna damage my spiritual life, is some weird code, please take me out of here. Like, I don't care. Deport me. Come,
Right.
send the police to get me from the temple. Like, I really don't care. Like, just take me out of here, because I was really divided, because I loved the message so much, but I was freaked out by what I was seeing. And when I say
Mm.
freaked out, based on my conditioning, let's call it conditioning, right? Growing up Christian, but at the same time finding it beautiful. You know what I'm saying? Understanding the meaning of the prayers,
I mean,
looking at the deities
very
themselves,
foreign.
like they're gorgeous, right?
Right.
So that
Mm.
kind of divide
Mm.
was happening in my head, which didn't take long, of course, for me to get clarity, right? Because I searched. So that was beginning the whole thing, and here I am. But to answer your question again, was this: I think, like, more and more as I get in conversations with people that are into the law of attraction, and people are talking about the universal mind and this and the supreme and source, right? Source energy. More and more, I'm so convinced and happy about the decision I made um, regarding being part of, trying to understand and identify myself as a Hare Krishna, as a devotee, because I see Krishna as that supreme source.
Mm.
That's they called, what is it? The I just said it, not conscious mind. The Yeah, the supreme source, the mind, right? The universal mind. Excuse me, that's the word I was looking for. Universal mind. But then, if you dig
Mhm.
deeper, you even find out that that is only an aspect of the supreme absolute truth. It's not even the supreme absolute truth, and that is clearly elaborated by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where he explains, like, Krishna has naturally, like, three energetic manifestations, right? And one of them being Maya, which is the universe. And that's, I think, you and I, last time we spoke, we touched a little bit about
Mhm.
this concept of Maya. When people talk about Maya, they're like, oh, it's Maya, right? And they say, oh, we have Maya is this, and it's seen as this evil thing. And I think that is
Right.
important. I came to the realization that it's like, yes and no, though. It's evil from whose perspective, right? From the perspective
Mhm.
of that one that has already established strong relationship with God, and sees as material energy as something that is not favorable for his or her relationship with God. That's the way I look at it. And I
Now,
was
let me ask you.
Go ahead.
You're kind of you might be getting a little, I should say, a little detailed and esoteric for
True.
people.
True.
So it might need a little explanation, some of these concepts like Maya and material energy and these kinds of things. And we can we can expound on that, or I can let you expound on that.
Uh-huh.
But I would like to take it back to the beginning of your story and
Mm-hmm.
your mom's passing away and some of the questions that you had around that not being satisfied. Can I ask you, what were the explanations given to you from your Christian upbringing that didn't satisfy you? Like, what exactly were those answers given that weren't enough for your understanding?
For me, the answers were there were no answers. It's kind of the blind faith, as what I saw it. We are sons and daughters of God, right? We are sinners,
Mm-hmm.
and God came us to forgive our sins, and we just have to have faith and surrender to Him, right? Which is all beautiful. I thought was great.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, it was great, right? But then you start looking, surrender to
Mm-hmm.
Him means surrender to what He's saying, right? To surrender to the instructions. And I see that everywhere. I saw it then, and I see it now as I get older and I'm able to get into discussions with more confidence, which I didn't have when I was young. You see a disparity because you're saying to surrender, but you're not clear surrender to what, right? And you're telling me to surrender, but I don't see surrendering from the people that are telling me to surrender really according to what Jesus is it's mandating. Like, we have even the same in Brazil, like what would Jesus do, right? That exists in Portuguese as well, right? So it's like a lot of people don't live their lives in a way that they are acting in a way that Jesus would act. So to answer your question, the answers are very vague. The answers are very
Okay.
vague, and it's
So,
just blind follow kind of thing, and that's what was very frustrating to
so
me.
when your mom dying of cancer, who in your mind, and I'm sure many in her family, was a saintly person, and I could tell by yourself and the service she gave to her family and all of that. So her dying of cancer, how was that explained as it's just God's plan? How was that explained to you?
That was given as an answer. There's also God's plan, right? God has a
Yeah.
plan, which they don't say what plan it is. It's just always God's plan. We know we can, and it's vague like that. It's like, okay, what is this plan? So it's things like that are said. Also things like that there's the enemy. The enemy is working, right? That something like that. It's just there's a battle going on, right?
Mm, mm.
And within this battle, sometimes we suffer. Those things happen. So for me, in my experience, there were those answers that they were very vague and open, which enhanced my asking even more, because I'm like, what kind of God that we worship and praise, that we sing and say that is Almighty, Creator of all things, is being challenged by this enemy that is causing you know he's
Mm.
causing so much damage. Like, what kind of God will
Right.
allow that to happen? There's someone that is like raised his hand and thought like, okay, I don't like the way you are running things here, I'm gonna mess things up. So it was all very
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of contradictions. I saw a lot of contradictions that people could not reconcile,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and they could not
Yeah.
reconcile to me. And even when I asked, and again, of course, I was probably not assisting them with giving me a plausible or a good answer, because I couldn't elaborate.
Mm.
I couldn't really communicate the frustration, right? And because I wasn't even sure of what I was looking for. But for me, didn't the two plus
Mm.
two? I was not getting four as an answer. I kept getting just to give you a
Mm.
material example, I kept getting 2 plus 2 is 4, but I'm like, no, dude, 2 plus 2 is 4. Like, so why
Right.
this happens, right? Why is this thing? It's like, oh, it's God's plan. We can't understand, which I was all good with it. I completely understand. Yes, I'm a soul. I'm limited compared to the unlimited. But I think that we should have an ability, like we should have an opportunity to understand. A loving father would to try to give some guidance, right? Some direction as of why things are like that. And that's why for me, at least my experience in daily engaging in trying to ask these questions, I found the answer within the like the Vedanta conclusions, right? That are presented within ISKCON, within Gaudiya Vaishnav, within, as you said, the quote of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? Which is basically based on love of God, love of God. But even to get that platform, he came to give so much more. Yes, he came to give love of God, pure love of God. But he gave so much more, right? He gave like our true identity, who we really are, and the process to awaken that love of God, which for me is like it has been, and I shouldn't say I have no doubt, but I guess I'm gonna say it. I have no doubt that will continue to be very fulfilling as I keep digging and finding out more about myself and my relationship with transcendence. That's how I look at it, and I'm satisfied. But that was that was my experience.
If I could ask you to expound a little bit on what you see as a better explanation in a way. What the incident, like for example, your mom dying of cancer, how is that explained from the Vedantic standpoint?
Yeah, that is a hard one though, because what I'm gonna say, most of people don't wanna hear it, right? But it's I came to accept, and it makes sense to me. And again, that question, we can spend hours here dissecting the answers, right? But I think we are experiencing in this life the results of our own actions. Now, most people don't like to say that.
Law of karma.
It's the law. It's karma.
Right, the law of karma.
Exactly, it's karma. We're just experiencing, right? Exactly, it's basically karma. Like it is something that we've been the Vedas speak of how we've been trying to enjoy and act in this material energy since time immemorial, right? So we can't trace back our activities, and we are in this body right now experiencing the results of our choices, the results of our actions. And it's so interesting to me because Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita about, he says like that the soul under illusion thinks himself as the doer of activity, not knowing that material energy is carrying out the activities, right? The three modes are carrying out the activities. And I was trying to understand this quote. I'm like, what does that mean? It truly means that I went to me, that's my understanding, and I did have a conversation with someone that I consider, advanced in knowledge, in spiritual knowledge, someone is dedicating his life, to understand and spread this message of Krishna consciousness, and he understood, he agreed with this conclusion. We went recently, or a few months ago, my family and I, my wife and the two kids, we went to Harry Potter, right, in Orlando, and my daughter and I went in one of the rides, and it's an amazing ride. You think you're like riding a broom, like in Hogwarts. It's amazing. It's so well done, man. So well done. Like there's screens like on top of you. There's screens around, right? You feel the mist. You feel the heat when the dragon breathes fire, and it's incredible.
Wow.
And while riding, you have no choice but to just like scream and hold on for dear life, because you're just observing. You know what I'm saying? You're sitting on that thing and there's nothing you can do. And I came to realize that, there's nothing I could do physically. There's no action I could take in that moment besides like hang on tight. Does that make sense? There's no action I could take in the moment to change what was happening to me. Right? What I was experiencing as far as the mythical, Hogwarts and the dragons and seeing Hagrid or whatever. But I could desire, I want this to be over soon. Oh my God, I want whatever that may be, right? I came to realize.
I hate roller coasters.
I know, man. I kind of like,
Go ahead.
I was done. The good thing is, it was a good thing that we did it kind of the end of our day there, because if I did it in the morning, that's it. I would
Right.
be out of commission.
I,
But I thought was so interesting because I realized I was like, that is my experience in this material world. I have the illusion of choice. I have the illusion that I'm doing something, that I'm choosing to do things, that I'm choosing to do that. And I'm actually doing them. You are choosing. I'm sorry. I have you are choosing. I take back what I said. Not the illusion that you're choosing. The illusion that you're acting.
right.
The illusion that you hold the power to act or not act. When that, according to the Vedanta conclusion, is like in this material world, in the body, you truly have no choice. It's like you're running. It's kind of like you are in that roller coaster, just experiencing and screaming it, and material nature is just taking you. The simple example is giving is kind of like people say, "Oh, I have control of my decisions. I have control of what I do." I'm like, no, you really don't, though, because if you have to go to the bathroom right now, you can't look at me right now and say, I'm not gonna pass. I'm not gonna pee or poop anymore. I decided I don't need to do that anymore. Those are lower functions of the body. I don't have to do it. Material nature, the body will force you to do. Will force you to go to take action. I know it's a very gross example, but it's one that is spoken of. It will force you to take action. So if I'm not the doer of activity, what do I hold as mine, as something that I can take that I can take ownership as mine, and that is choice, focus. You can choose to focus wherever you are. You can choose to focus and desire and think about whatever you want. Now, I understand that sometimes the momentum that we are living in life, whatever that may be, maybe I got my heart broken, maybe I lost my job, maybe I won the lottery, blah blah blah, positive or negative, right? The momentum, positive or
Sure.
negative, can influence my thinking, my focus. But it doesn't change the fact that I own that potency, the desire potency. And that is truly the one that we have control. And based on that desire potency, everything else is taking place. Why? Because material nature is set up like this, to reciprocate with us to reciprocate and send our way whatever we have our focus, wanted or unwanted, positive or negative. Does that make sense? And I got confirmation. He's like, yes, he's like, that is correct. That is correct. And that makes me happy, because I'm like, yes, because then I can focus. But most of us, as we start talking in the beginning of this conversation, like as we said in the beginning of our conversation, like a lot of people, I don't know if we mentioned this or last time we talked, but I know the two of us, we talked about this. A lot of us choose to live in the past, the thing that happened to us, or positive or negative, and we keep bringing it forward. And then people say, "Oh, I don't know why this keep happening to me." That's why, because it has your attention.
Well, I mean, that right there is a point of emphasis on how that becomes that. How just, okay, I'm focusing on it, I don't want it, yet how am I attracting it? That's not just an easy concept that everybody gets.
No, it's not.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm thinking about stuff. Yeah, I don't want that.
Exactly.
Right? So perhaps, how do you see that?
I see as conditioning. We're conditioning means conditioning means a way that we are accustomed at looking at things. Most of us, when we think about the things we want, we talk about what we don't want. I have this conversation with my wife all the time. I'm like, what is it that you want? Oh, I just don't want this long commute, or I just don't want this. I'm like, no, that's not my question. I asked, what do you want, though? And it takes some conscious effort, some conscious thought to speak what is wanted. Does that make sense? Why? Because there's not enough. There's not enough practice. My humble perspective, there's not enough practice, and that's why And I think it has to do with the law of attraction, because when people have the, and it has to do with what also, like with faith. That's why faith is so important. And I'm appreciative of my Christian background, because faith was something that it is very much nourished in Christianity, right? Have faith to a fault, right? Because it goes to blind faith, but it is something that is nourished, and I always believed that you have to have faith, and that's why I believe in a practical way faith can be applied, where you understand the laws of the universe, where you understand who you really are, the nature of this world, and the nature of the Supreme Source, Krishna. You can, based on that knowledge, you can have faith and hold on to the thought, or hold on to what is wanted, to your desire. And based on that, you ignore everything else, right? Oh, but things are not working. Oh, because people are going to say, yeah, but, right? Oh, yeah, but. Oh, yeah, but. It's like, and yes, I'm aware of all these things. I just choose not to give it my attention. And I choose to give my attention towards what can lead me in the direction of what I want. Of course, easier said than done, though, and I'm very much trying to practice that in my own life.
Well, definitely, because that's a huge conversation in and of itself, is basically how we are attracting, what we want or what we don't want. That itself is a big subject right there.
Very much
so. We can get into that in a time, perhaps.
True.
And expound.
No, it's a huge subject. Yeah. I think a simple question is based, and which again I believe, like based on people's comments on Facebook, and what they speak in their circle, with their friends or whatever. You can see that most of people. And again, I don't mean to be judgmental of people. I'm just, we're just speaking and getting to a conclusion. I feel like most of people don't really consciously hold on to that idea that whatever you focus on, period, whatever you give your attention, wanted or unwanted, you will have to experience in this body. And again, it's so hard, right? It's so difficult, because imagine someone that feels wronged by a person that said some terrible things about them, or said something that is not true, that caused harm or something like that. How can I not give it my attention, right? And that's why I appreciate Krishna consciousness, or this Vaishnava philosophy, so much, because it speaks about that. It speaks about being more tolerant than a tree. Like, those things are not poetic, they're very practical. That's what I found out since I made a decision to look at this philosophy in a very practical way. What does that mean, to be more tolerant than a tree? What does that mean? Like, how can I be tolerant when I feel attacked, right? When I feel verbally assaulted, or someone is having some ill intent towards me or my family, how can I act? How can I direct? So all those things, I find it easier to answer for myself now, and easier for me to move in the right direction, to move in the direction of what I want, because of this Krishna consciousness philosophy, because it clearly to me explained the nature of this material world, which is a big one. I think most people miss it, because they don't understand that the nature of this material world is all given. Given in which way? It will facilitate to the jiva whatever you have your attention on. That is the culmination of God is all good. That I grew up listening in church.
What does that mean, jiva?
When they say God is all good, right? People say God is all good.
No, jiva. I wanted you to explain it.
Explain
jiva.
What? Oh, jiva. Yeah. Jiva. I said jiva.
Mm-hmm.
The spirit soul, right? The soul, who we really are, not this material body, right?
The individual.
Individual, who we really are, the consciousness within the body. Thank you for pointing that out. But so for me, the Krishna consciousness really help answer that and deal with things around the world. That's why I find now that people are not bothering me as much. Like, I understand that people are acting almost like they're forced to act. They're forced to, material nature is forcing them to do what they're doing right now. And if it involves me, if it causes an emotional response within me, I have to take 100% responsibility for it. It's my karma. It's something that I did, that now material nature is setting up a scenario that I'm experiencing it right now, and it's caused an emotional response within me. And I go as far as saying that emotional response, it's evidence or is guidance to help me move away from what I want or move in the direction of what I want. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's another big one. That's another big one. And we can definitely get into that. I do have to wrap it up.
Yeah, we've been talking for
actually.
55 minutes. Thanks, AV. Dude, I can talk about these things all day long, dude.
Yeah, I mean, they're big subject matters, and there's little details here and there, and it's just, I mean, it's great to try to delve a little deeper and understand ourselves and the world around us, and how we can, like you say, get actually what we want, what we really want.
Yes, yes. Well, AV, thank you so much. I appreciate you doing this with me. I love having these conversations. I think it's where I can get clarity, right? Because that's what I'm looking for, clarity, so I can move towards the things I want. And again, what we want to be happy, right? Someone was asking me, a devotee was asking me, like, he was not asking me, but asking a group, what do you want? And people, oh, I want to serve, I want to do this, I want to do that, like very like inspiring answers, you know, but it seems a little bit rehearsed. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
It seems a little bit like, oh yeah, you heard these things and they're nice, you know? And they asked me, what do you want? And I said, I'm going to be honest, bro. Like, those things are all great and they are inspiring, but I just want to be happy. That's it. I want to be happy. And I don't know if this is bona fide or not, but I want to be happy. And he said, this is very bona fide. Keep on going. Keep on going. Because that's what everybody wants.
Well, it's the natural state, right?
Yes.
Ananda, Sat Chit.
Pleasure.
So it's our natural state in a way.
Pleasure seekers by nature.
To be happy.
Yes.
And what you're also doing, is service. When you talk about your mom and service, attitude, and all of that, you know, in this way, you're able to serve others and help people discuss and figure out and get there. And, you know, that's a great thing.
Yes. Yes. Awesome, AV. Thank you so much, man. As always, a pleasure talking to you. I'm always sad when I have to let you go.
Yeah, man. We'll continue. We'll do some more.
Yes, for sure. I'm gonna have you again. You're probably gonna be like the what is it called? Honorary member. Like, out of all the podcasts, AV has been. It's like 50% of guests. AV is the one that makes the most appearances.
Every now and then, I'll fill in.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll fill in an empty slot. Yeah.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. I appreciate talking to you. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Be well. Have an awesome day.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is it. That is Ananta Vrndavan, good friend of mine. If you have any questions, any comments, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave your comments here in the comment section below. And I look forward to the next episode. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.